I would say on the opposite end, like you, I've got seniors this year, and so they're worried that they're already set in their ways. And
Senioritis starts in December.
Yeah. How do you keep them excited and get them excited if they're not?
I'll take the other side of that. I taught seniors last year, and the ones that were there wanted to really know. They really wanted to.
They kind of dropped off.
Yeah, they were definitely, they'd drunk some Kool-Aid by then.
They probably wanted to go a little deeper.
Yeah.
Sorry for my chicken scratch. I'm not used to writing chalk. It's a lot harder. All right. Anything else? Again, I just want to make sure we cover what's on here.
Just keeping kids awake at 5:30 and interested. I wanted to, not how to get your good lesson that you prepared hopefully into sleepy faces.
All right. Well, that's a good list, and kind of what I hope to accomplish today, if it feels right to everybody, is I'd like just to spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes just kind of theory, big picture. Then some very practical ideas. We'll spend the most of our time with that. And then maybe the last 10 minutes, we'll see, did we answer these? And the ones we didn't, we'll go into those specific. So does that feel right? Are you okay with that? Okay. So let's talk big picture just for 1 minute about the first week. I would submit to you that when it comes to the first week, and by the way, for those of you who know me, this won't come as a shock, but I love perspective. So if you have a different perspective, don't hesitate to share it. We don't want an echo chamber in here. So a lot of this is just from my experience. But from my experience, the first week we make a very critical mistake. And that is we place our focus in the wrong place. Now as seminary teachers, what are we usually focused on? What would you say? Getting through the material, teaching the doctrine, AKA having a lesson. Does that make sense? I would submit to you, if that is your focus on the first week, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, I'm not trying to be dramatic, and I'm not trying, anything, but if you on the very first day just jump into your New Testament lesson, you have really set yourself back, in my opinion.
I was gonna say the new way the curriculum makes that very hard because we're jumping in. Normally, if you start a new school year the way it used to be, you would have an introduction. We're going to get ready to cover this section of scripture, but because we're coming in and point following's been going on and we're jumping in the middle, that's where it gets very tricky. And that's we feel like we're trying to catch up, but that's not the case. We need to still treat it the first week as a first week of the school year.
Yeah, so did everybody hear that?
Yeah, I think the counter to that is, we, as teachers, we all want them to get the material, but they're already getting the material. It's the same course material that they're getting with their families, hopefully, if they're, during Compalme, and the same material they're getting in church. So seminary, we get a chance to deep dive on, just specific things, and if there's stuff that we miss, count on the grace of God that they're going to get that material.
Takes some pressure.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of knowing that is kind of liberating, because I'm not responsible for teaching them all of the New Testament. They're getting it from a couple different sources.
Yeah. I think we're gonna skip straight to the practical because you already get it. Yep.
So this will be my first time teaching seminary, but what I'm gathering right now is for the first week, you're not just gonna shove the doctrine at them, make them feel comfortable, make them want to share, and make them oh, this is a fun environment, I wanna come back, so that the next week is when you really dive into the doctrine stuff.
Well, we could almost say, well, amen, good, everybody. There's the whole 50 minutes. And I know I don't know you, so please don't be offended. Could I just maybe offer one suggestion on what you said? It's not just the first week.
Right.
It is the entire year. Now, please don't think again. I know some of this sounds dramatic, but I think one of our biggest problems as seminary teachers is we focus so much on this. You said it in different words. You said doctrine, blah, blah, blah. We focus so much and think our objective is this, but what's our real objective?
Spirit of Jesus Christ.
Converting children to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm just gonna be a little bit more generic. That's where our focus is. we teach students. We do not teach lessons, we do not teach doctrine, I mean, we do, you know what I mean? But we teach students. And one of the hardest things I think we struggle with, and it's actually as seminary teachers, your greatest strength, but it's also our greatest weakness. You were chosen by your state presidencies generally because you're looked at as some of the most faithful, testimony-driven, obedient people. So on your pacing guide, when it says your lesson today is 1 Corinthians 15:22, what are you gonna do?
Make sure they get that.
You're gonna teach 1 Corinthians 15:22, no matter what the Spirit says, no matter what your students' response is, no matter what they're wanting from seminary. By golly, we are obedient. We are teaching 1 Corinthians 15:22. What's the problem with that?
I guess this is where I was going, so I've been thinking about this, trying to decide, because I have sophomore and freshman, so I have new freshmen coming in with the group that's already been here. But one of the things I felt like they had in common, and not going straight to the lesson and going like, oh, super cool, is how was summer, how was FSY, how was, and then maybe tying that back into the lesson, or tying what their experiences that they had over the summer. Or follow me, or especially with FSY, a lot of our kids,
Well, can we take what you just said, and I have a little handout I'd like to get you, because I think it adds just right on with what you were just sharing, and maybe we can take that and go a little deeper. Is that all right? Okay, I'm not trying to cut you off or anything like that, but I don't know how to hand this out best. Just take one down, pass them around. I don't know. It'll be way too many. By the way, maybe I'll just say this. Maybe, just maybe, if I point it out, it'll be a little more obvious. When it comes to this, this versus this, did you notice I had my computer in my hand? And I'm just sitting here as I was listening to all of you. What we just did was not my lesson at all. It was not how we were starting. It was nothing at all. But did you notice? I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I could have forced the lesson, and I could have cut you off, and I could have been like, what I prepared is awesome. And I was gonna show you Ferris Bueller's Day Off, for heaven's sakes. I mean, how can you miss that? But as seminary teachers, if it's really about the students, you just put the computer away. It's not about our lessons. I don't know. Does that make sense? And I know that's so hard to do, but you just have to. And you have to start that mindset the first week. It's about the kids. It's about the kids. Yeah.
Well, and that's, because this is my second year teaching, so obviously I'm a pro now.
Yes.
Write
a book for all of
yeah,
us.
oh,
Yes, write a book.
Coming in the winter. But that's kind of where my focus towards the end of the year, I was like, okay, I'm starting making notes of things I'm gonna do differently next year. And because I am focused on freshmen, I'm a big advocate of whoever will listen that junior high is the worst time to be a human being. Like, the 11 to 13 or whatever is just a horrible time, and so coming out of that, right, I feel like you get kicked out of primary, and then you have like these weird floating years, and then all of a sudden you're thrown into seminary, and you're just supposed to have this deep testimony, or at least that's in my experience, for my whole year of experience, how they kind of feel. And kind of at the end of last year, I kind of dropped all of that, the whole I've got to teach the doctrine, I got to teach the test kind of mentality, and kind of my focus going into this coming year is just teach them how to learn. If they know how to recognize spiritual promptings, if they know how to, you know, where to go with their questions, then the actual story in that lesson isn't necessarily the biggest thing, right? It's like, because like you said, hopefully they're getting the stories and other aspects of their church study. But if I'm, you know, able to facilitate an environment where they can learn to recognize the Spirit and they can learn how to learn, then that's setting them up for, you know, to be able to do it on their own when they're not in a classroom setting.
Love it, thank you. One question on that, and maybe we can open it up to everybody. I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but we've really hit hard that it's about this, but what are we not saying when we say it's all about this?
That's not important.
Yes, can we make sure we're not going over the top? Of course, this is still important. Thank you. What else are we not saying?
Oh, I'm not sure about that, but I love your first day. I felt it's so important to have the Spirit be there. And I just love it. Everybody get to know me, get to know each other, get to know the Spirit. The Spirit, it'll be there. It's so strong. And I think that craving for the Spirit that they have, they don't even know they have, will help bring them back.
Cross our fingers, right? Thank you.
Brother Peck, you taught this a year ago to
I
me.
know, I'm sorry.
And so I'm here to bear testimony that how true this is. If I were to, this was my first year, this last year was my first year in 10 years to teach. I taught a long time ago. But if I were to rank the top 5, you know, lessons or experiences last year, you know, that where the Spirit was strong, and bore strong testimony, and we all seemed to leave uplifted and walking on air, and I know I did. I bet 3 or 4 of those would have been lessons where it veered into something unprepared because of a question or a comment, and it was completely obvious that this is where we needed to go, and we went. It doesn't mean we abandoned the lesson.
Can we stop there for a second? Because where did you start?
With the lesson.
We started. Yeah,
Yes.
we're not just saying stand up and just
That's
be
right.
like, what do you guys want to talk about today? Here we go for 350 days.
And we didn't have to abandon it completely. We can come back, relate it, but it was powerful, and the other powerful part seemed to be making sure they knew, that the students knew that we went off the script, so to speak.
Pointed it out.
So that they knew that that's okay, we will do this, and it's okay to do this, and please ask questions and we're willing to do this. And I think it created an environment that they were more willing to bring up things, and and ask maybe tough questions or strange or important questions. But anyway, so I can bear testimony to this for sure.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, Cooper Johnson, he was my seminary teacher. I'm just
No,
turning around.
That's the worst thing you can say. It makes me feel so old.
I know, and he did that. Like I felt like he did that, and he taught by the Spirit, and I felt love in this classroom, and I think that's a big part of it too, is just showing your love for your students and relating to them.
Maybe that's a way you can say it. It's all about kind of tell you where to go. Okay.
This is an online class question.
Yeah, go for it.
I only get 1/5 of the opportunities the other instructors do.
Yeah.
What do I do with that?
Yeah, so here's my best advice for online, and it might not be possible, but if you can, and I'm gonna frame it to the first week because that's kind of what this is about. The first week, and we'll talk about it more here, is the critical week to set expectations, to show them who you are and what seminary is all about. I struggled mightily trying to do that over Zoom. If there's any way you can contact the parents and the students and explain why you're asking them to do this, what we talked about. This is the most important thing, building relationships, blah, blah, blah. So for this first week, maybe a week and a half, we're gonna meet in person as a normal class. And you're gonna do a lot of just stuff, if that's possible. And if you can do that, you've set a foundation in your mind, then it will help the whole year to be able to participate more. And it's so hard when you're only seeing them once a week to develop relationships. It's really tough. I don't know, is that possible in your situation to say?
It was called Monday.
Oh.
I have not been sustained or set apart.
And some of these ideas that you have, like, find pictures of the Savior, I remember doing that with my online class, and they just put it in chat, and then they shared why that picture was important. So you
Can
just
be
find
done.
ways to adapt.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not possible, we live like 30 minutes from everywhere, and my kids are like an hour and a half from us, so like we are all online, there's no way to meet in person.
Maybe a Sunday though, a Sunday
We have
afternoon.
kickoff coming up, so I'll see him kick off.
Yeah, but even a 2-hour Sunday of fun, I don't know, I just, somehow even online, I would try to get them together somehow in person.
The online format gives you opportunities to send out announcements, which kids won't answer, obviously, or comment half the time, but it gives them an opportunity to react, and also reaching out if you can't meet in person, right, reaching out each day personally to that person through Wise or through your Canvas or whatever helps gain that trust between teacher and student.
Thank you.
I don't know, that's what I've used in the past.
Taught during COVID in South Carolina.
Yeah,
The thing
we
that kept us,
survived, that's our motto.
we did, the
Survived.
thing that kept us going with the kids was, I and the other teacher were texting those kids every day. Here is lesson 81 today, let us know when you've got it done, or make sure you look for this in the lesson. And then checking every day to see if they had, you know, if their scores were in, what they've done, if it's the end of the day. Text them and say, oh, don't forget to do your lesson today. You don't want your percentage to slip, that kind of a thing. I think the fact we stayed in touch with them constantly on their, no emails, they won't do emails, but the texts made a huge difference in our relationship with them.
We can apply that to normal seminary too.
True.
Hope that's helpful, at least something to chew on. Okay, so I'm just debating in my head just a little bit here, just give me some feedback. The plan was I just wanted to kind of model a few of these different things so you know exactly what it looks like. Do you want to go there? Would that be helpful for you? Or is this enough self-explanatory?
Side comment.
Okay, do that then.
When you're establishing your expectations and norms for online seminary,
Right.
please help them understand that they have to do those lessons, because we had a student that didn't understand that. And so even though they felt, they're like, oh, I showed up to every Zoom meeting, they thought that they had 100% attendance. And then when they tried to graduate, they found out that they were missing basically 120 days. And they're a senior, and how do you, like, you can't magic that out of, like, that's really challenging. And that's, I mean, there was just a breakdown in communication. The parents didn't understand that, the student didn't understand that. And so establishing that, like, as an expectation is really important. So, and then the text would obviously help.
You know what I think we might do, I don't know, is that listening to you, don't take this as gospel, but I'm gonna go and see, maybe our last class, we ought to do an online teacher after lunch, like just for online teachers. So I'll see if I can find someone that'd be willing to moderate that, maybe we'll announce that at lunch. Would that be all right? Because, cause that's the same, right? Or are you straight Zoom?
We're hybrid, we're in person with Zoom.
No, I think you'd probably stay in this normal type class. This would be more for those who are doing Canvas, and then the Zoom one day a week. So would that be helpful for those, maybe one class where you could just talk to each other and swap ideas? Okay, I'll see if I can get that organized. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do this really fast. If our focus is on students, not so much lessons, hopefully we just kind of modeled that a little bit. I would suggest that the worst thing you can do is just jump right into the New Testament on the first day. That is gonna be rough. It's gonna set up, you just can't, in my personal opinion. So what I would recommend you doing is what you see on here is your focus instead on the first day is get to know me, get to know each other, get to know the Savior. That's what you're focusing on. So if you turn your paper over and just go 1, 2, 3. It's number 1, 2, and 3. I'm just gonna model what you could do if it works for your personality. I'm gonna pretend that you're a seminary class, okay? Is that all right? So remember, this is our first day. We haven't really know each other or anything like that. I'm just gonna do the exact same thing I just did. Everybody grab your journals, get them out, number about 1 through 8. No, you're not gonna do that, right? Okay? We're having a quiz on the very first day of seminary. But don't worry, this quiz is actually a first impression quiz, which means you cannot get anything wrong. It is totally whatever your first impression is. And it's about me. I'm not trying to be conceited, but if we're gonna have a good and wonderful class, we have to love each other and trust each other. So this is how you're gonna get to know me a little bit. And I have a very thick skin. So you write whatever your first impression is. Fair? Okay, question number 1. What is my first name? Which you guys already know because it's up on the board, but that's always the first question I ask. Do whatever questions you want, it doesn't matter. Question number 2, as you look at me, how old do you think I am? Now with a first impression quiz, you just have to have fun and not stress, right? And again, it really doesn't matter what the questions are. You just want fun things in your life. Question number 3, what do you think is an embarrassing moment of my life? Now, are they gonna have any idea? But there's a reason I asked that, so you'll see in just a minute. And here's some other ones, you don't have to answer them. Am I married? If I am, how many kids do I have? What kind of car do I drive? Do you see what you're doing? One really fun one for the guys. When I was a teenager, AKA young adult, how long was my hair? How long did it go? For the ladies, if you were in the 90s, 80s, not sure about the 70s, but how high? Literally, no, you ask, how high were my bangs in high school? So you're just having fun, right? It doesn't matter, okay? Now this is the key, so everybody knows the answer to number 1, because right there. But you just have fun. Okay, number 2, raise your hand. What? How old do you think I am? 52? What? Wrinkles?
No, I suck at guessing.
White hair? What? You know what I mean?
It's one of the things.
See? Yeah. Now see what we're doing here. We're just trying to laugh. That's all. We're just trying to have fun. So no, not 52. Nope. Anyone else want to guess?
47.
Oh, close. Very, very close.
48.
No.
Trying to do the math of like how old you could possibly be with 3 kids in
Oh,
your house.
yeah. 46. I'm 46 years old. So now you're gonna have to understand, if you're 16 and you're looking at your teacher, you are what? Ancient. So just be prepared, right? Now again, I love your comment. There's nothing wrong with ages, but one kid was like 62 years old, and I was like, what? You know what I mean? By the way, with my name, one student wrote jerk. That's what they wrote. Yeah. No, you don't need thick skin. You turn it and you make it fun. You're like, how did you know? That's exactly what I did. How did you know in 5 minutes that I am the biggest jerk you are ever gonna, right? And they laughed, and you know, it's fine. They're just teenagers. Okay? I don't even remember. What did I ask for number 3?
Embarrassing moment.
Oh yes. Now this is why I asked this one. Anyone want to guess?
When you asked your wife to marry her.
Yeah, no, but can I tell you that story real quick, because it's a good one. You see what I just did? Then it's fun at the end after you tell maybe a story or two. You just say, what's yours? And just let them, maybe 1 or 2 students, just share an embarrassing moment. Because again, Now notice I didn't say your most. When you do that with teenagers, that's hard, because then they suddenly go into, oh, I have to think of my most, what's my most, just what's an embarrassing moment. It puts them at ease. And then you just ask, anyone in here willing to share theirs? We won't have you, but you'll always have one or two that will, and then you're laughing again, and that's all. Okay, questions on first impression quiz? Please ask. Okay, so then you just say very simply, okay, we've started getting to know me a little bit. Now we're gonna have you guys get to know each other. That's our second objective. There are a million name games on Google. I would save you a little time. I've tried a bunch of them. They hate this one, but it's the most effective. And so I don't care. I just figure they can deal with it. So can I just get like 5 people to stand up real quick? It doesn't really matter. Just stand up. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, good enough. So in your class, you'll have them stand up and get in a circle. If you have a huge class like 30, you'll split them into 2 at least. You won't want to do this with 30 students. It will take the entire time. You don't want that. And it's the one we all know and we all hate, but it just works. You just start with the first person right here.
Sarah.
Yep. And then you go to the second person. This is?
Sarah. My name is Helga.
Then, let's see, boom, then we go to our third person. Some people like to add, tell me one thing about yourself. On the first day, I don't. I just want them to learn their first names. No, yeah, you can sit down. Yeah, it's easy. I know we all hate it, but it works. And then the other piece of advice is you're gonna have some students that's gonna stress them out. So just put their minds at ease. Just say, you can write down all the names if you want. Because again, this isn't a quiz. We really just want them to learn.
So, I will be teaching the youth in my ward. I was their Sunday school teacher before, and so they know each other because it's all within one ward. They know each other and they know me, and I know them at least a little bit.
Can I stop you there? No, please, I don't know you at all, so don't be offended, but that is a mistake, a very common mistake that we make, that they already know each other. One day I tested it with my daughter, who had been in, young men, young women's activities for years. I said, would you just share with me all of the boys' names? I think she did well. And I said, why don't you know the boys' names? And she says, I don't like them. And I was like, well, that's a good reason. And then I said, would you share all of the young women? She got about 95, but I think she could think of 2. It's just, we think they know them all, but I've just found over the years they actually don't. And they don't know you well enough. Seminary is a different beast. They have got to see all about you, get to know you, and they'll enjoy it too. I'm not trying to just keep going, but your questions will probably be a little different. It's not gonna be what's my name. You're gonna just come up with some questions that they probably don't know about you. They'll laugh, they'll have fun. Yeah. And maybe if they do know each other's names, you'll learn it when they go around. It'll be fast. You'll be like, oh, Chad was wrong. And celebrate.
There's some technology resources that can make this even more interactive.
Oh,
There's Jackbox games. There's a version of the game Vivage that is called.
Okay, slow down. So you said Jackbox?
Yeah, Jackbox.
Never heard of that. Explain that.
Jackbox games is a server-based set of games. There are
Is that on our phones?
Yep.
So it's a phone game?
Any device with a browser.
Oh, okay. So you need to have an electronic device.
So there's a device that is, or there's a computer that is hosting it, and then everyone else joins via their device to provide answers and input.
Kind of like Kahoot. They're in the same way as Kahoot.
Yep, but there's a set of games called Vivage. There's actually 4 of them.
I get a bunch of this.
F-I-V-V-A-G-E.
What is that, sorry?
F-I-V-V-A-G-E. There's 4 versions of Vivage, and they all have something called Enough About You, where it asks them a very random, interesting question about themselves. And they put it in, and then the class competes to see who can guess who those are, and even come up with their own potential answers. make sure that some of the moderating filters are on so you don't get.
And that would work well too if you were on an online class.
Yes, it would.
If they were
I've done it over Zoom, it works.
Are these the same company then?
Jackbox is the company, Fibbage is the
Oh,
product.
that's the actual product, and it's free, I assume.
Nope.
Oh.
Jackbox games are about $10 a piece. You can buy them in packs for about $30 a piece. The one thing I would say is that there are limits as far as how many can participate at a time. I think Enough About You is 8 people at a time. So having had a class that was about 16 last year, I did it in 2 groups, day 1 and day 2. Took about 30 minutes each time, but we spent half of our time together learning about each other.
And that's okay, because remember the first week, it's all about get to know me, get to know the students. It really is. This takes seconds. You have to do this the first week.
Something that goes along with that without the technology, which the technology is fantastic, but I've got like kids that their phones are still locked at 6:15 in the morning, so you can't always, like, I love to play Cahoots, but it won't work, right? Because this one kid is left out. So at the beginning of the year, I'll put a random Google form together, like random questions, and then throughout the year play a game called The 3 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like, how can you get 3 people to like have the same likes, you know, like you pick certain people. I don't know, there's an explanation of that game online, but just grabbing, like, you have all their information, you know, all these answers to the questions, and like stand up if you know, like cereal or whatever, you know, like just random questions. So it's more work on my end, obviously, but you have all the, like, Enough About You could play that game, you know, like who loves this, like guess, you know, but you have all that information in paper form versus electronically. But electronics is amazing, just, you know, there's always options for the paper.
Right, thank you. So is that kind of, are we getting the gist of what the first week is here, where our real focus is?
I got one of those emails from our supervisor that said, oh, and by the way, you have a student who's on the spectrum. How does that fit into some of these kind of ideas?
Yeah, you'll need to talk to the parents first before that. Yep, and find out more information, because that can change some of this stuff for sure. Yep, get lots of information. Thank you.
Just setting a precedence at the beginning, I'm curious, for those of you, because this is my first year, I'm curious, what do you see works better in a class setting? Paper scriptures versus electronics?
I am going to say one thing and then shut that conversation down. So I will not call on you if you raise your hands. No offense, all right?
Sorry, I didn't know this was controversial.
No, it's great. I'm just teasing. Because there's only one answer. It's personal.
Okay.
And if you talk to one seminary teacher, they will say electronics is the only way. And then you'll talk to somebody else and they'll say paper is the only way. We're still divided.
Okay, I wondered.
You have to decide.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression I was just teasing.
So how, in a previous smaller training, for our states, 2 states, it was, phones were brought up, right? And, people said, yeah, that has been an issue in my classes. Like I said, it's my first year teaching. I don't wanna, baby them, right? You want them to be self-governed, but, like what advice with that is there? Like, how do you balance, like?
Yeah, I think this is something everybody deals with, so if I just share a lesson you can do the first week, would that be helpful?
Yes.
And then, again, these are just suggestions for first week, right? If it's not your personality, you just throw it away. This is what I've done and it's helped. I'm not gonna say anything solves the cell phone problem. I haven't discovered that yet. I wish I'd write a book and make $1 million, but I found with teenagers, you have to explain why. If you can get the why in their heads, they're much more like willing to kind of go along with the program. If you stand up and just start being, you know, hammer about cell phones and things, good luck. It's gonna be tough. This is what I've done on the first week. Like I said, it kind of sets the tone. And it doesn't really matter when you do it, as long as you do it within the first week, is you bring ice cream and a blender and just different toppings to class. And you just basically say, today, we're just gonna talk for a minute about our class, about the year, about how we're gonna have a wonderful experience together. And then you just get the ice cream out, and I usually just do vanilla Bluebell, because I like it, right? And I just say, this ice cream represents all of us in this class. It's Bluebell. It's amazing, and it's awesome by itself. You just put it in the mixer, right? And say, even as good as it is, and it is amazing, we can even make it a little bit better. What makes Bluebell ice cream even a little better? And you pull out some Oreos, some sprinkles, some milk, whatever, marshmallows, who cares? Doesn't matter what it is, right? And you just set them on the table. So does that make sense so far? You say, these things make it better. Now we're gonna liken this to our seminary class. The vanilla ice cream is us. What are things that make seminary awesome? And you just write them on the board. Doesn't matter what they say. And then as they say it, you just, after they explain why, you just say, okay, is that an Oreo? Is that some milk? You just let them choose, doesn't matter. And you're just building a milkshake. Does that make sense? At the end of however you want to go, and when you feel like you made your shake, you made your points on what makes seminary great, you just look at them and you say, whose job is it to do all of this mostly? Because most of this is going to be them. Does that kind of make sense? And then you just commit them. You just say, today, will everyone in class be willing to do these things? And they'll just say yes, because it's, first week. And then you literally, this is what I do, I take a picture of it right then so they see that I'm serious about this. I blend it up, I get the cups out, I'm like, who wants some? You'll have especially freshmen. They'll be very excited, even at 6 in the morning. Girls I found not quite as much. I don't know why, but they're not as excited as a 15-year-old boy. But and then right when you're about to give it to them, you say, crud, I forgot one ingredient. Oh my gosh, how did I forget this? And you pull out an onion. Doesn't matter what it is, just something that will destroy the milkshake. Does that make sense? And you say, every seminary class I've ever had, I have to put this in. And then if they're into it, they'll be like, no, no, no. I've had some that just stare at you, and I'm like, do you want me to put this in? You know what I mean? Yeah, depends on the class. You just write onion. It's not hard. You just say, okay, what are the onions of seminary? What's going to destroy our class if we allow them to happen? And they know, they're not dumb. Even freshmen, it's the same in public school. And you'll just have them write them. Same exact thing as with this. At the end, you'll just be like, okay, you guys commit that we're not going to do onion behaviors in class. And they'll say, yes. Take the picture, and then you just say, okay, you committed, so I guess I don't have to put this onion in. And then you blend it up, and you say, okay. Now the reason you do that the first week is now for the rest of the year, you set the expectation. If the class is doing an onion behavior, you literally just stop your lesson. And you'll do this the first week a few times. You'll show them you're serious about this. And you just say, onions, what are we gonna do? That makes you don't have to point it out. You don't have to be like, you're on your cell phone, you know. You just say, guys, we're doing onions. You promised you wouldn't. And they'll look at you kind of funny and you'll be like, come on, you promised, I'm gonna wait. No onions in class. You're the ones that committed to it. Does that kind of make sense? Then the other part of it that's so nice is if you have individual students that are doing it, you can put your class into like a group or something, and you just quietly step over, and just say, hey, no onions in class, remember? See how that works? And they have that visual. Now I'm not saying that solves everything. They're still gonna have trouble, but it will solve a lot. And especially if you have a class presidency, you've talked to them about this, and when you say onions and maybe they ignore you, you you've already trained your class presidency to be like, come on, everybody, like you literally told your class presidency, you need to back us up, because it's better when it comes from your peers. Okay, that was really long. Questions on that? Does that help?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, it's just why. Anything else?
So, question on your class presidency. I've always just done each student takes a turn being devotional leaders, and so they have to assign, the people that help the class to assign and fill out that week. I mean, we've done it different ways. I don't know, how do you feel in having class presidency? Some of the kids felt like they're the favorites, that's why they were class presidency. I don't know, I just never did it. The other class did, I never did. I just felt like each week they were assigned, they write it on an index card, I signed week, they write their names to it, and ask them who got first, individually first. So I don't know.
That's what I do. Again, it's totally up to you. I've never used a class presidency, but that's just my personal
Yeah, I
opinion.
didn't.
So,
I thought really all
it's just if you do, great, you can use them. If not, I do that sort of thing. But it's totally up to you on class presidencies. 100% if that's something you think will benefit your class. All right, well, hey, last thing, we didn't get to a lot of this. Here's my phone number and name. If you look at this and you're like, I have no clue what he's talking about and I'd like to know, please call me. I'm dead serious about that, night or day. Just call me and be like, hey, Chad, I don't quite understand what you meant by number 4. And we'll just talk about it. I really sincerely mean that. Just call. And we're all in this together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And good luck here in a few weeks. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. All right, have fun, and we'll see you at lunch. Oh, you have one more class. Just kidding. One more class, then lunch. Oh, I will for sure. Yes, thank you for that. Oh, I was gonna say. I don't want to reach over people. I'll meet you back. Thank you so much.